Morning all. It is canning season again. So I'm going to be doing green beans and corn today. This is a pressure can method. I will go into it as I'm doing it, but I'm going to kind of give you what you're going to have in order to complete the process. Uh, First off, you're going to have a pressure canner. This is a 7-quart Miro jiggler. Uh, it ranges from 5 to 15 pounds of pressure. It just once it comes up to temperature, it will start letting off excess pressure. With this one, it takes a quart of water in the bottom of the canner itself, so it will achieve the wet pressure it needs to seal the lids. I normally put a splash of vinegar in there. It keeps the lime build up. It that discolors your jars whenever you're canning. Um, the You can use any type of salt as long as it's not iodized. This is sea salt. You can use kosher salt. You can use canning salt. Anything that's not iodized. I've used all of them in this method. For pints, it's a half a teaspoon. For quarts, it's a full teaspoon. And this is a raw pack method. So I will divide the jars up. I will put the salt in. I will pack the raw vegetables in. And then I'll put boiling water on top of it. You'll need rings, depending on what kind of jars you use, whether the large mouth or the small mouth. You'll have to have lids. They need to be sterilized. I cannot emphasize that enough. Everything needs to be sterilized. What sterilization means, I normally wash the jars, the lids, and the rings, and then I put the jars into the oven or boiling water, and with the water, I let it boil for at least 10 minutes and leave the jars in there. That kills all the little nasty bacteria that might be on your jars. In the oven, I set it to 225 and leave it in for about an hour. That gives enough time for it to kill what it needs to kill bacteria wise. This little thing has got a magnet on the end, so you can pull out the lids out of your hot water. Now, your lids are going to vary. It depends on what kind they are. Read the directions on the box or the bag you get it in, because some of the new lids, you do not boil the lids. It's just hot water. I normally boil water because I have to use it in order to fill the jars. So what I'll do, I'll take some of that boiling water, put it in a pan, and let it come down a little bit before I put the lids in there to sterilize the lids. You also have to have some type of measuring device in order to get the salt into your jars. I use a stainless steel, or you can use plastic. I don't like using plastic because the less plastic I have to use, the better. Um, it's a funnel that fits on top of your jar so you can pack or pour the water in without it getting everywhere. And you'll have to have some way to get the jars out of the oven or out of the boiling water in order to fill them. Now, my area, I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Illinois, South Central Illinois. So our recommended poundage is 10 pounds. Um, at sea level, you'll just have to read your instructions for your canner, what style you have, where you live, and how high you are. I'll put it up here somewhere where the altitudes change in order for you to be able to figure out kind of what you need to use as far as pressure. Other than that, I've washed the beans. I've picked out any bad spots on any vegetable that you do. Is it's not bad, but it might ruin the jar. You spend a lot of time doing this, you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor, or in this case, the vegetables of your labor. With my canner, I let it come up to boil. When it starts venting out the top, I don't put the weight on. I let it vent out the top for about 10 minutes in order to let the steam and let the pressure equalize, because your lids are going to vent out a little bit that's on top, even though you've put them down. You only tighten, especially when you're pressure canning, you only tighten finger tight. Don't over tighten, because that will lead to a failure, not of the lid, but of the jar. The jar will break well before the lid will. So you just tighten it down, hand tight, finger tight. I use about 4 fingers to tighten it down, and that's it. You crank it, 9 times out of 10, the jar is going to break because the pressure can't get out while you're pre-cooking your beans, or you're pre-cooking your corn, or whatever. You have to look at what your directions say for canning times. I've always done 10 minutes to vent, 40 minutes at 10 pounds of pressure.
Okay, stop. I just looked at the video. I meant to say 25 minutes for quarts and 20 minutes for pints of green beans. I stated 40 minutes. That is for lima beans for quarts. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled video.
Now, when it's venting, you don't start your timer until it starts to vent out after you have put the weight on, because it'll take it a good couple minutes in order to get pressure enough to build up the pressure to where it's going to be able to vent. Once it starts venting, there again, you're just going to have to look at yours. I know mine. I've used it for years. I've done this method for years, and I've never had an issue. You might have an issue the very first time you do it, or you might have an issue the 100th time you've done it. What I have here, I'm boiling lids to sterilize them. I've got 7 quarts of jars in here sterilizing. I have probably 30 quarts and pints in the oven. It's set at 225, so it will be sterilized. And I'm boiling water in order to pour into the jars once I have them packed. A full teaspoon of salt in the bottom. That's how I've always done it. You can put it on top or sprinkle it. Doesn't really matter as long as it gets in and makes the solution inside the water when you pour it in. Now, these jars have been sterilized. They were washed first, and then about 10 minutes in boiling water. Now those are all ready to go. Now this is where I'm going to dip some of the boiling water that I used for the jars. I'm going to dip some of that out. I always put a few extra lids in whenever I'm doing this that I'm going to need, because you never know when one's going to fail or one's not going to sit right in the mix. I'm going to throw a splash of vinegar in. Not a whole lot. Now I do always have a paper towel with vinegar on it just to clean the rims of the jars. I'm just lightly putting it in at first, and I will push them down quite a bit. Now see, that's what I'm talking about. There's a bad spot there. One little spot can ruin the batch, so I will not do that. You want to leave about 1 inch of headspace. I've washed my hands, so anything you can do to mitigate any bacteria getting into this, the better. 1 inch of headspace is down to about right here where the neck is. I will leave that. Go on to the next one. I take the vinegar and wipe around the top. It's a little too full, but you wipe it around the top. There's the lid. Ring. Now, finger tight. Now I've got 7 quarts in there. Time to seal it down. Now it's got to come up to, I'll let this vent for 10 minutes.
Now this is what I mean when I let it vent. The steam coming out of the vent hole at the top. I've let it go for about, it's getting close to 10 minutes. Now the steam coming out of the side, that will stop once I put the weight on, because the lock will automatically go down. Now with the jiggler, you got denotations. I don't know if you can see that or not. There's 5, 10, and 15 pounds of weight. There's the 15 right here. 10. And what I'll do, I'll put it on the 10 pound and I'll let it go for
25 minutes.
Or it starts to jiggle. We're gonna put the weight on. Find my 10 pound slot. It's round. I go at an angle, put it on. Now I'll wait until the locks seal and this starts jiggling before I start
25-minute
time frame for it to be under 10 pounds of pressure. I'll adjust the flame throughout just to make sure that it stays at a constant. You don't want the thing to sit there and sound like frying bacon. You want it to let off
around 3 to 4 times a minute.
And there it goes. Now it's jiggling a little too hard. That's what you don't want, so I will adjust the flame. I'll turn it down a little bit. And I'll start my time. I'll have to stand here for a little bit to get the right jiggle. I'll be back when it's done. It should be done by now. Yep. Just don't take this off until you make sure that it's not going to jet.
just let it come down to, let it come off pressure by itself. As you can see, it's still boiling. I'm going to take these out. Now this is when I do tighten the lid down pretty good, just so it doesn't have a chance to not seal. And I will cover them with a towel, and that's how you can beans. Thanks for watching.